Boom. What up, fam? Anthony Dream Johnson here today, co-founder of the Redman Group, founder of 21 Studios, 21 Convention, here with a special episode on Sunday of the Redman Group. But again, Happy New Year 2021. 2020 is long gone now, a couple days out. Be a great show today, first one of the Redman Group this year. Joining me today is a guy named Kyle Trouble from kyletrouble.com, and this is trouble.com. He is a Manosphere content creator, entrepreneur, dating coach, all kinds of great things, and an author. So without further ado, welcome to today's show, the special guest, Mr. Kyle Trouble. What's up, man?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on. Glad to be the first guest of 2021. It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I've been watching your Twitter account, like I was telling you, and different, articles and stuff you put out, and looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a great show.
Absolutely. Let's roll in.
Yeah. So let's take kind of a wide-angle view on this. What is your backstory with the Manosphere? Like, how did you become... Is Kyle Trouble your real name? I'm not sure if that's a pen name.
Kyle is my real name. Trouble is not my actual last name.
Got it.
Yeah, it started back in 2012 when I kind of stumbled upon the right things at the right time in my life. I was always like a pretty successful, pretty smart guy, but that part of dating I could just never understand at all. And then at the very end of 2012, I actually found Chateau Heartiste, and I stumbled upon that, and my life basically was never the same after that. So about 6 months to a year after I kind of found that, I just wanted to start documenting my journey. So I kind of just started this little WordPress blog and started kind of writing about what I was learning, what was working and what wasn't. And then that kind of turned into a part-time gig writing at Return of Kings for Roosh back in the day. And then from there, it kind of became an actual business over time. And I was able to actually leave the corporate world back in February of 2016 and take on the blog and the content creation, all of that full time. And I moved out to Eastern Europe, where I still am almost 5 years later.
Nice. Fuck yeah. We'll get into the Eastern Europe stuff too. I really was impressed when I went.
Yes, we will.
I went to Central Europe or whatever last year in Poland. I guess there's arguments about that. They debate on that shit.
It doesn't matter. You're ruined anyway.
Yeah, I get it, man.
Matter.
So here's a question though. You mentioned you found basically the Manosphere itself, the Red Pill kind of wing of it, 2012. You got more into full-time coaching and developing a business 2016. But sorry, I'm still waking up, man. My brain is like, I had a long New Year's Eve.
It's all good. It's New Year's, right?
Recovering. God, my fucking brain is like, I need to really...
It was you who said like the viewers are going to be too hungover to do this show.
Yeah,
you.
I know. Well, it might have been
all that.
It might have been a little projection.
Okay.
Oh yeah, here's the question. Did you ever get in in-field coaching though? So you did obviously the books and the authorship and you're teaching guys online. Did you ever as well do that in field? Actually go out and
I did. Yeah, a little bit in San Diego and then a little bit also in Poland when I first came in 2016. But I don't think it never really vibed with me that much. And I think kind of looking back in hindsight now, as soon as I got to Eastern Europe, my whole perspective kind of changed. Like instead of saying, hey, this is what it is, this is the cards you've been dealt, I realized pretty quickly that it was such a different world out here and that the way that we were living in the Western world was probably not conducive to long-term health of men and of women and of just a family unit in general. And I think that's what a lot of guys in the sphere have realized over the last, I think, 2 to 3 years. There's been a lot more shifting towards relationships, saving the patriarchy and less about, hey, let's just bang thousands and thousands of girls. So I think that kind of, the first trip I took to Poland in 2014, that was like an eye opener. And then I went back to Budapest the next year and that reaffirmed that. Then I went to Colombia and it was, just again, every trip reaffirmed like, oh, like maybe the way that we're living in the States is not necessarily the best healthy way for everybody involved. And so, but yeah, I did do a little bit of the coaching. It never really clicked with me that much. I can't say I ever did more than maybe half a dozen to a dozen sessions, so to speak. But yes, at one point in my life, I did do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it comes to mind because I heard about for years from the dating coaches I know through the convention and the pickup artist community, the Manosphere. They were raving about Eastern Europe, South America too, a little bit like Colombia, but mostly, Romania, Eastern Europe, Poland, Ukraine, all these places for years. And I believed them. I thought they were telling me the truth, but I didn't really fully grasp like what the hell they were talking about until I went there. The minute I saw it firsthand in 2019, like I mentioned, I was scouting for the convention and stuff in Warsaw. I fell in love immediately. I was like, everything these guys have told me for years about the women here, the dynamics, how women operate, even how men operate. The whole culture is just fucking different.
Yeah.
And I had been parts of Europe. And I've been parts of Europe before that. I've been to Sweden, obviously feminist shithole. But London, Germany, and those places were different than America, but they weren't like. I saw basically, Poland is like kind of not a haven, but really a really healthy place. That's what stood out to me the most. I was like, men and women here, they operate differently, they behave differently, they get along a lot better. The women are not fat, they're fit, they're in shape. They love Americans, which is nice, but even beyond that, they just it's fucking different. It felt like 1950s America with
it
Wi-Fi.
Feels right.
Yeah,
it feels like how it should be. That's the best way to sum it up, I think.
Yeah.
What inspired?
Yeah, exactly. What inspired some of your first journeys and trips abroad like that? A lot of guys will talk about that, but they never do it. You just kind of.
It was just having enough good friends that were doing it, and just seeing what the kind of girls they were dating, the kind of success they were having, the stories they were having, and just how different it was. And then I think at some point, I actually did go out in San Diego with a Serbian girl. I dated a Russian girl briefly, and I didn't have a damn clue what I was doing at the time, but it was enough that it piqued my interest, and I could say, this is probably something worth exploring. And so that's kind of what I ultimately ended up doing, was just that first trip I did 2 weeks, and it was Poland, London, Spain, Rome, and then Prague in the Czech Republic. And I pretty much left those saying, London's a shithole. I don't ever need to go back to Barcelona. Rome was okay, but I don't need to go again. And Poland and Prague were absolutely awesome, and I would go back. And that's kind of what I ended up doing.
Was Barcelona like London? I'm not familiar with Spain, honestly, like the cities and stuff.
I mean, it's got its sense of beauty. The food's okay. It's kind of got a beach vibe, but at the same time, I didn't ever feel like I was in that much different of a world, really, than, say, America. I was in San Diego and LA, so beach cities didn't excite me that much, and it just didn't vibe with me that much. So I wanted something different at the time. I lived in a pretty good spot in San Diego and in LA in the States, so I didn't need another beach city. I need something drastically different.
Got it. Yeah, fuck yeah, man. What are some of the best things you've seen about the women in these countries that you like versus, and we'll talk next, then I want to ask you about the negatives of American women. So what are some of the best things you've seen about Eastern European women, and what are some of the negative critiques that are legitimate in your interview about American women?
I would say the big thing with Eastern European women is that it just feels kind of like how it should be. But if you cannot get your act together in the US, you'll get eaten alive out here. And that's going to be true in the majority of the countries. They are going to respect someone who is, secure in being a man and isn't afraid to at least be a man at the bare minimum. And in return, you get obviously much more compliance, just much more of a feminine attitude, obviously better style, better fitness, and just a better overall vibe and connection. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, but it feels like how it should be. Like you said, 1950, where women were just easy and pleasant, and you could get along with them, instead of this, in the US. And I think this is probably my biggest critique of American women, is that it's just this wall of hostility all the time. There's always just something wrong. You can never win. It's always just this battle between men and women. And then you start bringing politics and family and all this other stuff into the equation. And like I don't know how anyone does it.
It's like their default setting is like combative. And
correct.
It's like, in Poland, I was in Poland, and it was interesting because I got, I had generally just a really good experience as a woman there. Bars, coffee shops, fucking whatever. It was good everywhere. But I did get a few shit tests out at bars and stuff. But I noticed it was like hard and fast and done in a minute or two. And I was like, I haven't seen that in America since like 2008, 2009. That is, even in America, that's kind of died out. But in Poland,
I think in the US, it's just constant ball busting, right?
Yeah, it never ends. It just fucking
never ends. Yeah. I think the bigger thing is that by default, American women are on nag mode. And that can be busting your balls, that can be shit testing, whatever you want to call it, but they're just fucking annoying, to be honest. Whereas I think with the Eastern European girls, it's more, we're going to test you really hard once in a while, and as long as you pass that, then we're going back to the traditional roles. But you fail one of those, and bad shit can happen at that point.
Yeah, women are still women anywhere you go. It's just American women I view as extra toxic. It's not just Americans. Canadian women are all the same. The British women and shit.
British, Western,
You mentioned style too, and that was something that I think I haven't talked about enough back when I was, was more recent, the experience of Poland. But even when I was in Norway a little bit, but especially Poland, I remember on my way out of Poland, my final trip out of 2 in 2019, we were in, the Krakow airport, and then Warsaw, we had a layover, and then back to America. In both airports, everyone was dressed to the nines. In my view, at least from my perspective, the women dress nice everywhere they go, like all the time. It might not be the same as if they're going out clubbing or something, but like they're even in an airport, they're going to fly, they're dressed nice. I got back to America. We had a layover in Chicago, I think, before going back to Florida. And dude, the women, it was like a fucking comic book, like a fucking like a Wall-E or some fat movie or some dystopian movie. The women they're all eating fucking McDonald's. They smell like fucking McDonald's and Burger King and shit.
And they're stuffed into yoga pants.
Yoga pants, pajamas. You see women walking around an airport and fucking, they're not even, I mean, yoga pants are pretty bad. They're in fucking pajama pants in the middle of the fucking day at an airport. And I just got out of Poland where these girls are like fit. None of them are fat and they're fucking hot and they're fucking dressed well. And I'm like, fuck, these are my people. Fuck, this is fucked.
Dude, imagine being out there for like several years and then going back. Like every time I go, it's like, I feel like I walked into Wall-E. Like you said, it's like being in a dystopia.
Yeah, I wanted to go back in 2020, obviously. We were supposed to do the convention in Krakow after Warsaw, and that fucking went out the window.
Didn't work, yeah.
Even 2021 now, people are like, oh, are you going to go back and do the convention in Poland? I'm like, I don't know. Are we going to have, is the world going to the economy going to collapse? The dollar going to collapse? Is there going to be civil war? Is World War III going to kick off? It's like on a day-to-day basis. I'm like, all the above. Yeah. We'll get into that.
Well, hey, man, if you want to do it in Ukraine, we're still open here, as far as I know, to foreigners. So if you want to do it here, it's even better than Poland.
My concerns are mostly just anywhere in Europe right now is there's so many different countries, so many different borders and like flights and restrictions and shit.
Anywhere in the EU where Poland is, you're screwed pretty much because you can't get in as an American. But Ukraine is not in the EU, so you can get in. No problemo.
Maybe we'll do a different country then, yeah. I'll look into it. Yeah, I just had such a good time in Poland, man. It was just fucking. But hey, maybe Ukraine's better. Some Ukrainian women I met in Poland were like really, really hot.
The best ones there, probably. Yeah.
I talked to Polish women. In fact, they even approached me at coffee shops, which was just like wild. Like, good-looking women will approach you in Poland in the middle of the day if you're like a decent-looking dude. But it's funny because one of them was saying, she said she was kind of joking that Polish women are scared of Ukrainian women because they're so fucking beautiful. I'm like, yeah, it sounds great.
Actually, what happens in Poland now, and even like the Czech Republic to a certain extent, is the hottest women are going over there, as well as the unskilled men, like to do labor work. And so it's kind of like the reverse California, Florida, kind of Mexico thing, where now it's like the Ukrainian guys and the best Ukrainian girls are going there for better jobs or for better, dating prospects too. So, those kind of things happen anywhere in the world. Same thing happens in Russia with some of the, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan guys and girls coming over. It's, migration.
Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned, leaving your corporate job, going full time with you were an author at Return to Kings, starting WordPress blogs. Obviously, you have a few books on Amazon. Let me show those off later. What's your experience been with entrepreneurship? I mean, it sounds to me like you're basically a full-time solopreneur, entrepreneur. You even have an olive oil company you were doing out of Croatia, right?
Yeah, correct. So basically, that's what I did for a while, which is kind of the blogs, courses, books. And then I started that olive oil company with my friend Martin. I met him in Prague. He'd been a reader of my blog for many years. That's at selloolive.com. And then his family has like an olive oil farm, or olive tree farm, I should say, out in Croatia. So we started shipping that over. And then I got into some e-commerce stuff. And, I still kind of do the blog and the personal brand and the Twitter. But these days I actually am mostly just doing cryptocurrency trading and investing and kind of just taking that on as a full-time thing. So, I think this year COVID really taught me, like, you don't want a business that can be taken away from you by Google or by the government or by Amazon or by whatever fucking entity just wants to bend you over and take something from you next. So I kind of started looking like, what can't be taken. And I think at least the markets are never going to be taken. And, I was fortunate I made some good investments earlier in my life with those kind of like crypto things that I'm pretty good here. So that's kind of what I'm trying to now pursue as more of a full-time thing, because I think it has more longevity than a lot of the other options.
Yeah, it's dangerous, man. Like, I love my company. I love what I do. But, in a lot of ways, in some ways or not, we're getting more resilient, building our own platforms and stuff. But at the end of the day, we're still huge on YouTube. It's like a main thing for us. And it's like walking on eggshells. It's like being in an abusive relationship. They could ban me any fucking day, just like Stefan Molyneux or Alex Jones or 1,000 other fucking people because of my opinions or because of like, fat woman or fat. Oh, ban, fuck you.
Ban. Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, for example, like my biggest site used to do 3,000 to 5,000 hits a day, and they don't like what I say anymore. So now it's like 300 to 500, just like that.
Damn. Yeah, they
couple updates and you're done. Yeah, pretty much.
YouTube's the same way. It's like a mini Google, and it'll
owned by the same company. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. alphabet fucking.
You know, and
radar.
that's what is really scary is people don't see this. Like I talk to my girls' parents all the time, and they say this suppression of speech, this suppression of thought. We grew up under the Soviet Union. They're like, what is happening in America sounds exactly like how we grew up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but people in the States are welcoming it with open arms. They don't see it. They don't understand it. And I don't know. They won't until it's too late, I think.
It reminds me of a game. Like, back in the day in the pickup community, there's huge debates about direct game, indirect game. And Mystery was always the advocate of indirect, at least as it would be conventionally described. But in America, I think it's like we're seeing all the censorship and tyranny, but a lot of it, some of it's from government, obviously 2020, but some of it's also kind of indirect through corporations. It's like they're trying to replace the Bill of Rights with terms of service. It's like, oh, free speech, not for you. You can walk outside your house and yell the fucking sidewalk, but as far as having a voice on the internet, nope, dead, die.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the internet. Go ahead.
I say that indirectness is different from the Soviet Union, for example, and even communist China. They're much more heavy-handed directly. But in America, like, oh, Amazon banned your book. Oh, too bad, private company. It's like, I have a problem with that. That really rings a bell with like Nazi Germany and Soviet Union and a lot of places where they just murdered millions of people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's coming soon. That comes next. Pretty soon you'll be shipped to a camp in upstate New York if you don't have your vaccine and you're at risk. I mean, the writing's been on the wall since fucking March of this year and people still aren't waking up. I mean, they'll have to be on the damn train to the gulag before they say, oh, shit, like, what did we just do? Yeah, that's what it'll take,
Well, let's talk about that. We were talking before the show went live, and I want to say I really appreciate your Twitter account. You have an account similar to mine, 12,000 followers, something like that. And you're savage, man. Like you say, you seem to be like me, like what's on your mind, you fucking type it and you write it and you send it. You don't give a fuck. And I wish more Manosphere guys were like that. Some guys are like us. Some guys, though, they're much more like fence sitters. They'll think something and they soften it up, or they don't even write it, or they're scared to retweet it because it's too savage or too fiery, even if they fucking agree with it. And it's like, man, speak the fuck up.
You're almost no better than the politicians if that's the case, honestly. I mean, that's just it. If you're, sacrificing what you believe in for the sake of your brand and your follower count, whatever it might be, then you know what, your views need to take the precedent, and the business and the followership will come. But with that being said, we're at a pretty pivotal point in the world. I mean, I strongly believe this. Back in March 17th, whenever those damn lockdowns started, I said, pretty soon it's going to be, you need this vaccine. Please scan your chip to enter the grocery store. And today, just today, actually, I was refused to buy groceries because I didn't have a mask on. So people are not waking up to this. And unfortunately, the facts are right in front of them and they still can't see it. Like, I will take my chances being injected with COVID versus getting the vaccine over any day. Like, shoot COVID up in my arm right now. And people are just, they're so afraid, man. And I think this is kind of really just a very American thing, is when you have so much comfort and so much to live for, we'll say, but I mean Netflix and porn, really, then you don't want to give that up. You're not willing to rock the boat. Whereas people in other countries that don't have as many creature comforts are much more willing to fight and die for their causes than, having to actually get off the couch and do something like in America. So that's the thing, is we're so wealthy as a country, which is a whole nother topic about, the feds and the money printing and everything else. It's all a farce, but that money has bought enough comfort that people are unwilling to rock the boat and unable to ask questions and unable to stand up for themselves until it's too late. Yeah.
So let's take a step back here. What are some of your basic views on the COOF, pandemic thing? Is it real, fake? And what about the major things like masks and lockdowns? My opinions, the guys that follow me, they know what I think about these things. But what about you? The COOF?
I believe COVID's real on some level. Yeah, it's killed some people. Yeah, it's hurt some people. But guess what? People die every fucking day. And that's never, ever going to change. And I think it's completely wrong that the politicians, who are all almost exclusively older and in power, are locking down the youth and ruining the future. But this is also the American way of life, man. If you look at how Social Security works, it's the same thing. You sacrifice the future as long as everything is okay now. So I'm very much, COVID is pretty much a farce. Maybe it's a little worse than a common flu or a common cold, maybe a little bit. Masks, stupid, useless. They only work if you actually change them every hour, maybe every 3 hours. I mean, if you ask a heart surgeon how often you change that mask, it's more than once every week, like we do. They're basically piles of fucking shit we put on our face now, really. Lockdowns completely don't work, completely unnecessary. Hasn't been a single lockdown I've seen that have actually saved lives. And It's all been politically driven. And if you can't see that, you're an idiot. I mean, there's no other nice way to put it. You're an idiot.
So do you think some of the lockdowns were not only political, but maybe malicious to harm small businesses, shit like that? How far down the rabbit hole do you go with this? I go pretty far personally.
Politicians so politicians rarely create. They are not capable of making a blog and creating something from scratch. They're not capable of art, of business, of anything. The only thing they're really capable of is legislation, bullshit, and taking. They rarely ever actually add something of value into the world. So people, and this is kind of a mistake that's very American, is people say like, oh, the government's for good. The government looks out for me. Bullshit, they do. That's so wrong. And if you look at other countries like where I am in Ukraine, everyone says, wait, you trust the government? You trust the news? Like, what kind of idiot thinks like that? So almost the majority of other countries in the world are not that brainwashed. They're not that dumb. So I believe it's a combination of small, do people really want to crush small business? I don't think that's necessarily the objective. The objective is more that a guy like Jeff Bezos has the power to crush them, and he has the power to buy the lobbyists who then can buy the politicians, and they'll sell out for anything. I mean, look at the chicks that like McConnell and what's his name, Eric Swalwell. Look at those ugly fucking whores they're banging. Like, my God, they're disgusting little Chinese threes. Fucking Christ.
Yep. Fang bang.
Like,
fang.
Yeah,
bang.
like at least send a fucking hot one, man. Like, I'd understand if you fell for the beautiful like Russian blonde with the blonde hair down to her waist and the ice blue eyes, but the fucking fat little frumpy Chinese bitch. Like,
yeah. It's always bait as a fall for this crap, though. Like, that's why it's ugly women. So they don't need hot women. They need just gross women.
Passable.
Passable. Yeah. Fuck, man.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I go on that. I think it's all politicians just love power. They always want more of it, and they never give it back without losing it by force. And that's very quickly the way that we're marching, I think.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What are your views on the Great Reset, on the potential for civil war in America, or even World War III? There's a lot going on in the world right now, not just COVID, but all the crap surrounding it. Obviously, the election stuff, the huge fight over that. So what are your views on Great Reset, Civil War, World War III, just potentials?
Great Reset is pretty obvious. I mean, that was the plot of a major Hollywood film and book, Dan Brown's Inferno, I think that came out in 1415, where literally a guy made a plague which was designed once released in the caverns of the waterwork station in Istanbul, would spread around the world in 3 weeks and make a third of the world infertile. So that playbook has already been written. It's totally out there, and they've talked about this for years. And it is the truth. The world is probably overpopulated. There are too many people of questionable quality, low IQ morons who are having too many kids. So that's the problem, though. But those low IQ morons that breed out 6, 7, 8 kids are the ones that they can make into good little slave workers, which is the real irony about everything anti-racist, is that that's the goal, is to turn those same people back into basically worker slaves, more or less, for minimum wage, just cheap labor. That's all they want. So the Great Reset, depopulation, totally on the cards. It's well out there. It's not some big secret, I don't think. What was the next thing before World War III? You mentioned one other thing. What was it?
Potential for civil war in America. I mean, you're an American. You're born and raised here, right?
Yeah, born and raised California, live in Eastern Europe.
Yep.
I'm prepared to never, ever set foot on American soil again, or at least not in California soil again. I think that's actually a decent reality for my life now.
Oh, yeah. Fuck California. California is almost like America.
Pretty much. Yeah, no, it's the epicenter. I tell people the epicenter of all the crap is LA. That's where all the poison comes from. World War III, I think, well, let's do World War III first. Start macro. Sure. I think it's going to happen, but it won't be a traditional bombs, guns kind of thing. It can't be, because they'll decimate the entire planet. It'll be an information war is what it'll be. It'll be cybersecurity. It'll be cyber warfare. It won't be taking up arms and bombing each other, because the world will be decimated very, very quickly, I think. So that's probably not going to happen. As far as civil war, again, I mean, this is where I do see it being more like guns and sticks and bones, and actually kind of more a guerrilla warfare front. But I think, ask me after January 6th, I don't think that the other side has the courage. I think once the shooting starts, they could buckle quickly. But that's the problem, is that the conservative side has taken a long time to lock and load their guns. And I understand why, to a certain extent, because once that first bullet is fired, you can't take it back. and the blood is, once it starts, it's not ending.
Yeah.
So people need to be prepared with those consequences. But I see that coming possibly on some level. Or alternatively, there's a divorce, and these certain amount of states, say Oregon, Washington, California, was it Chicago, Illinois, Minnesota, we all become the United States Socialist Republic of Canada. Everybody else, you can still be America. We'll do it ourselves. That would be the best case scenario. But I don't have many hopes for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of potentials for what could happen, man. It's so nuts. I was thinking about it when, the BLM riot and all that crap, the Antifa riots started earlier in 2020. I was looking at some of the just basic timelines of history, and I'm like, man, we haven't had a civil war in America since obviously the 1860s. It's been 150, 160 years. And I was just thinking, I was like, is it reasonable to expect America to never, ever have a civil war again? And I was like, probably not. That doesn't seem likely.
No.
We were founded basically on a civil war, a violent revolution. We had another civil war 60, 70, 80 years later. So it's like, is it going to go on? And same with World War III. World War II was back in the 1930s and 40s. It's been a long time. There's been major conflicts since then, but not another world war, with the potential exception of the Cold War, which some people consider like a basically long-term World War III. But regardless of the Cold War, it's like, is the whole century going to go by and there's not going to be another major conflict of some type? I don't know.
No.
Seems plausible.
But that's a reality that I think is hard to process, because that's just a defense mechanism, man. But let's look back through history, and what's the longest period humans went without killing each other? It's probably not that long.
Yeah.
This actually might be the longest. And I think what is going to accelerate this one too is if you look at the history of world reserve currencies, we're near the end on the dollar, which can accelerate that too. But that's like how socialism is going to work, is they hope they can give people just enough of a handout to keep those guns away. That's the plan. That's what makes sense to me, at least. I think that's what they'll try to do. And eventually that will work to start. It probably will, but it can't last, because in that kind of economy, the people aren't producing anything. So eventually they're just all living in poverty. And that's just
it's all fake. The money ends up being worth nothing. Yeah, let's talk about the dollar collapse. That's a big topic that I think could spark a lot. That could be the spark for World War III. That could be the spark for an American Civil War, because that's when shit gets bad. People, you're right, or I'm all on board. They're sheep. They don't want to think. They don't want to like acknowledge what's happening. But they go to Starbucks and the expensive coffee, it's $4 or $5, and that hasn't changed much, right? The gas is still $2 a gallon or whatever right now, which is actually really low compared to what it was, in the Obama years. But if they go to Starbucks and that latte is like $30 fucking, maybe they're going to start freaking out, when they can't afford the latte because it's $37, like shit like that. So what is, talk to me about fiat currencies and the potential collapse of the dollar. I'm an American like you. I love my country. I don't want to have to leave. I don't ever want to leave. But if I do, I do. I want my country to survive and thrive. I think like you want to see America survive too.
Yeah, I mean, I get conflicted sometimes. Like people ask me here, why do you care so much? You're not there. You're not living there. And I said, well, like it or not, I still have family there, and I don't want to see them hurting. And the rest of the world does revolve around America, so to an extent. So that it does matter. It is kind of important. So I don't want to go back, but I don't want to see it collapse. I'd like to have it restored to a place where I would be happy to go back, but I haven't seen that yet. As far as the dollar, I think that would be more likely to kick off civil unrest, civil and war. I think other countries like Russia and like China would be able to swoop in, and, China will kick off their digital yuan or whatever it'll be. And I don't think it's going to have that much impact globally. Other people will come in and scoop up the scraps, that's for sure. But, they don't like to say the word inflation. Like the Fed, the government, they don't like to use that word inflation. They say all the time, oh, inflation's so low. But like it or not, go look at the price of college from 40 years ago versus now. Go look at the price of a home in most places. Look at all those things, and it's just the purchasing power of the dollar. You go look at the graph from its inception, and it goes down a little bit, and then as soon as the gold standard's gone, it just off.
Yeah. I mean, look at the price of gold. Now. That's a perfect example. Gold is $1,800 an ounce or whatever right now. Dude, in the year 2000, it was like $200 an ounce. Like, holy fuck. I was a kid then. I mean, we were middle school or whatever back then. You're about, what are you, 32, 31 at this age?
29.
Oh, 29. Nice.
29. Yep. 29.
30 is a good year, man. It's fucking, shit got a lot better when I hit 30.
I've heard. Yeah.
It's all real, man. I was skeptical and it's 100% real. Chicks dig it.
100% real. Interesting. Yeah, so I think we'll see on that, man. It's hard to say, and you can't predict exactly when it's going to be. But the purchasing
Yeah,
power's never been lower at this point. It's only going to keep getting worse, obviously,
yeah,
and people won't realize it until they're standing in line at the grocery store for that, $50 loaf of bread or whatever it's going to be.
yeah. Now here's a great question I want to ask. What is the connection for the average manosphere guy who wants to get better with women, who wants to improve his life in whatever way? Fitness, dating, relationship, finances, building a business, changing careers, whatever. What's the connection between, what we see in politics, all this lockdown crap, the mask crap, the coup stuff, all the potential for civil war and all these major issues? What's the connection between that and the way we see women behave in America, which I view as very, negative and destructive and toxic compared to like you're saying in Eastern Europe. So in America, we see these fat, toxic women that are nasty. And we're also seeing politics get to this like boiling point, all kinds of socialist, communist crap. Lockdowns obviously are just totally nuts. I agree. What's the connection there? Like, why should guys in the manosphere care about this? It's enjoy the decline, bro. Enjoy the decline. Watch it all burn, bro. Bang chicks.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I think there was a really good point of enjoy the decline where that was valid, but I think the evidence there now is that's not how do you save civilization. And if you don't care about civilization, if you're happy to let the world burn, then I kind of understand it. But I can't personally just sit by and watch that while enjoying just myself. Like, I don't want to see my family suffer. I don't want to see my friends suffer. So that's kind of my take on it. They're not wrong, but eventually that well dries up too, man, or dries up. And, it's like for all the enjoy the decline, bang lots of chicks, like, well, okay, but every year there's, 20% less attractive chicks in your country. So eventually, and here's what gets me is that then they'll come to Eastern Europe and say, oh, the girls here are so hard. This is bullshit. Like, why can't they be sluttier? And then eventually the girls get enough Western influence coming and they then become sluttier, and then they complain about that too. Well, they're not as feminine, not as fit anymore. It's like, dude, you have to open your eyes at some point and see the hypocrisy here. And I don't think a lot of guys in the manosphere are actually capable of seeing that, because that's kind of how, that's how they've been programmed, really. It's not that much different than just society in general. Like, once you have this core belief system, it takes a lot to shatter it. And it's almost like it takes that world falling apart for it to kind of rewire your brain.
Yeah, real change is hard. Real change is intense. It was in a very dark humor kind of way that was amusing when the riots started, and we saw American cities burning down, like literally on TV. Police stations getting bombed, Molotov cocktails, and it's like, oh yeah, enjoy the decline as you burn alive, or enjoy the decline. What, in New York City? This great club city from a couple years ago. Now it's a ghost town shithole. It's crazy. In Florida, I'm having a great time, but we're saying in Florida now, it's like the last free state. It's the last state that everyone, dude, it's packed right now. Like all the fucking beaches.
Oh, I bet.
It's through the roof.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, because everyone's escaping. Yeah, I've never seen it busier here in the summer, because no Americans could go to Poland or to Hungary or to Czech Republic or any of those other countries in the EU. So everyone was out here in Ukraine. A lot of guys, a lot of single guys, all, looking to get the local women here. I've never actually had a bigger crew for as long as I had this year here. It was interesting to watch.
Wow. Man, I need to go to Ukraine. It sounds like fuck. That wasn't actually I did want to go there, and that was actually the plan in 2020. Go do the convention in Poland, and then I was going to go on a business trip to Ukraine, and I can't wait to go at some point. Pending
it's a good place, man.
Vaccines and flights.
Bullshit.
And garbage. Yeah, I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
What's your view on vaccines and stuff? You taking the vax? What are you doing?
I ain't taking that jab. Hell no, man. I mean, dude, this is just such common sense. It amazes me, because how often do your average medicines take of testing before they hit the market? Like, just look at a skincare product. How long do they experiment on monkeys before they even try a human? And then how many human trials do they have over how many years before it can even be considered to be sold to the public?
Years.
The answer is somewhere usually between 5 and 10 years. Yeah. And they rolled this thing out in 5-6 months and are like, everyone line up. No, dude, like I said earlier, I'd rather take the COVID jab or, I would take the Russian or the Chinese vaccine before the Western one. Like, if it really, really came to it, I would have some many alternatives I would take before getting that, but I'd take the Russian one. before. And of course, the Western media will slander it, but they're not doing experimental stuff on the same level at all. But you'll never hear that in the Western news, you know.
Yeah, it's so fucked, dude. Like growing up, you know, you had mainstream media, and they would rig basically different, you know, issues like the Iraq War. Obviously, politicians they would hate certain politicians like Ron Paul that wanted real change, and that's how they stacked the system. But dude, it's gotten since Trump, you know, has made. I think Trump is a legitimate, viable threat to the American regime and the establishment throughout all the West, right? Since 2016, it's just been so nuts in America. You've seen it obviously in Ukraine, being over there, but dude, it is like they're just fucking out of control, like every day of the fucking week. And then even Fox News finally, they fucking you know, they've caved like pussies.
Caved. Yeah. Well, and what's amazing is people still. God, I saw these tweets today. There was all that stuff with Pelosi and McConnell's house. Like, oh, this is so bad. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Let's string those fuckers up. Well, let's put it on TV. My God, I'll raise a glass to that. You kidding me? You're upset that they had some graffiti on their house? Like, come on. Like, tell me how like McConnell or Pelosi have a net worth of like $125 million off their fucking house salary. Like, come on, get real. We're so stupid.
I'm so fed up with politicians. I could just, with a few exceptions, like my governor in Florida and, you know, Trump and a few savages. If they're not savage, I just could not give a fuck what happens to them.
No, why would you?
I don't give a fuck. Like they don't
give a damn about you. Yeah.
They don't give a fuck about me. They don't like America. They don't love America. Some of them even hate it. McConnell, I think, is more kind of like middle of the road, you know, just kind of sellout. Sometimes he does good things. Sometimes he doesn't. Pelosi's just pure evil. Crazy Nancy. And a lot of them are like that. They're just absolute treasonous sellouts.
They're everywhere. It's obvious now. I mean, look at that relief bill.
Yeah.
What is it? $900 million or $1 billion, and how much is going to Americans? Not enough. That's for damn sure.
$600. It just showed up on my account the other day.
Yeah. Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'll ever get it.
Yep.
Actually, I do want to answer this question here, Graham. What is your biggest number one concern about Western medicine? It's all for profit. That's why. I mean, you follow the money. It's all for profit. Like, no one wants to cure you in America. Like none. They want to treat. They don't want to cure, because curing is a one-time off payment. Then you're done. And I think it's very different to the medicine out here in Ukraine, for example, where doctors, even the top doctors, are making like maybe $500-700 a month, but they're very talented. But they want to cure you, and you're done. You're done. And just to even kind of shed some light on this subject, I actually had a acquaintance of mine fall out a window basically this year. Fell like 4 stories. Broke half of his bones, and he went to a hospital, and he actually had to have the medicine brought to him by friends. They didn't have it in stock. It was like, you have to go buy this stuff for him. And then at the end, it was like, can you please just give this doctor like $100 tip for all this service he did? Very, very different. It's not about curing, or it is about curing. It's not about treatment. So I think that's my biggest concern about Western medicine. And as far as the vaccine, I mean, just the testing, it hasn't actually been tested. There's all sorts of potential complications that can arise later. And then just follow the money too. Like I don't know the exact number, but everything I've heard, a COVID test costs $5-10 to make. And like out here,
one of the vaccines in America, the Pfizer, whatever the fuck you say it, the P one,
Pfizer.
Pfizer. I don't fucking know.
Pfizer, yeah.
I just hate all this shit, dude. But I watched some of it, and I think they made like a good $1 billion, I think, off it this year. And now that company, they're set to make $20 billion next year off of it. Just that one vaccine company making that specific vaccine, ignoring all the other ones, Moderna and the other foreign ones. So it's like, yeah, it's so fucked. But it's interesting you mentioned this, the treatment and symptoms and problems, because I agree with you, first of all. Second of all, though, it rings a bell. I don't know if you have any comments on it, but in the manosphere and in even a lot of self-improvement industries, it's very similar. Some coaches, I think, are not legit dudes. They're much more just like money-grubbing fucking scumbags. And it's the same type of deal. They want to keep you, like, just to pick on RSD a little bit. I think a lot of what they did with their guys over the years, not all bad, but a lot of it, they keep guys hooked on treating symptoms and not really getting better. It's like a hamster wheel, just giving them money. New course, new course, new course, new this. It used to be DVD sets back in the day. Watch this, do this. Like, it's fucking, they don't get any better. The RSD guys in the pickup community were the worst. And me and my buddies from the, Florida, the top layer, and different parts of the manosphere I've been in it for 15 years now. The RSD guys were always going out together, were always the worst. They would just do nothing but the same dumb bullshit over and over and over again and not get better. And it reminds me of what you're saying with modern medicine. Like, they don't want to treat problems; they want to treat symptoms, and then that keeps you fucking sick. Because a lot of times, a symptom can even be helpful to healing a problem.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think a lot of like, if you go out with, say, a company like RSD for the night, they're not necessarily focused on getting you laid or getting you better. It's a good time. So they get you addicted. It's like giving you your hit, and then you want to come back for more. I think I mean, it makes sense. That's business. That's capitalism. That's how it works. But I do think kind of like with medicine, that it goes a step too far personally. You're preventing people from being better and living healthy lives. But all the info's out there. Like a little bit of Googling around, reading some just obscure blogs, and you would find that, something like olive oil is probably a better cure for inflammation than any medicine or treatment they'll give you. You can go buy nice olive oil for, $12 a bottle or so, and it'll help you way better than most causes as well. So, yeah, exactly.
Hey, here's another question from Graham. He's a good friend, actually. Graham Miller. Kyle, what have your global travels taught you about the advantages of different systems of government, especially what would be surprising to Americans?
So I think like out here in Eastern Europe, for example, it's a distrust of government and a trust of people. And I think that comes from homogenous societies. We could go into that on a whole nother level, but I don't generally believe that different cultures and different color of skins, for the most part, can get along under one umbrella. I don't think it'll work. So out here, for example, it's high trust, but they distrust the government. So that is when the government knows that they will be kept in check to a certain level, they tend to be better to their citizens. The government should fear its citizens, not the citizens fearing the government. And we have the exact opposite in America right now. So, for example, Ukraine, they ran their president, Yanukovych, out of office and out of the country as recent as 2014. So the current guy who's in there now, Zelensky, he knows that's on the cards, on some level. So that's always going to influence how people react and how they're willing to rule over their citizens. And for example, I look at my parents in California who've basically been locked down since March, more or less. And out here, we had a lockdown at first and it sucked, but they lifted it. And then they said, we're going to lock down for 2 weeks, just on weekends. And they did that in November, and they did that and it was over. And now they said there's another one, January 8th through 24th. After the holidays, so people could still see their families. So when people distrust the government and aren't afraid of the government, that is how a society should function.
Yeah. And that's very American. And I think I agree with you 1,000,000%. It's very healthy. Yeah. The government should fear its people, like you're saying. Yeah. The president
absolutely
out of Ukraine. Absolutely. Fuck yeah.
You should be afraid that your citizens will march on the Capitol and string you up. Yeah. That's how you should react. That's how you should make policy with that in mind.
I wish more guys in the manosphere would talk like this, because you're exactly right. Our country, America, was founded on this. It was founded on rebellion and this kind of behavior, tar and feather, and all this shit. It's
dude. We had the revolution over tea tax, dude. Look at the fucking taxes now. Look at cryptocurrency tax. Like, we started the country over tea.
That's my concern with crypto, man. Is like, if it keeps going, it's doing so great, and it's like this outlet for freedom, and it's like, man, these fucking politicians are gonna hunt that shit down, like, because they hate freedom, and crypto is like such a good way around it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on precious metals compared to crypto? Before crypto was a thing, obviously precious metals were the thing to have. They were a very good hedge against inflation and monetary crap from the government fucking around. So precious metals. Any thoughts?
Outdated now. There's room for them, but it's outdated. And so the government has obviously shown before they will confiscate it. FDR confiscated gold and then said, we're buying it for this price and this is the new price. So that's been clear for a while. Now, as far as crypto, Bitcoin is certainly not 100% secure. It's certainly not totally private. But if you memorize 12 words, or hell, if you write down 11 words and you memorize one, they can't really get it unless they hold a gun to your head. I don't think it gets much better than that. If you're going to own gold, the problem is obviously dividing it. If you want to buy a house, you have X amount of gold bars, then sure, maybe that works, but you can't just sit there and chisel that gold bar easily to go buy a coffee down the street. So that's where it, has that limitation. But crypto has that same one now. Like, you can't, Bitcoin's too slow to go buy a coffee with it, for example. You need something like Dash, something a little faster. So precious metals have their place, I think, but I don't think they're the future, personally.
Okay.
And certainly not in the States, unless you're willing. I mean, that's the thing. You got to be willing to defend it too, if it comes down to it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things, let's talk about this. pivoting off of gold and silver a little bit, and that came to my mind again a lot. I've been collecting gold and silver for years. My accountant, my CPA, and my accountant always wants me to start like 401ks and IRAs and stuff like that. And I'm always like, nah, I don't trust the fucking government. Money in the bank is just dangerous. They can take it. Gold on my house they could take it, but it's a lot harder because I have a lot of guns and ammo. And in 2020, I stocked up on more guns and ammo than I ever have in my life. And I've been training and stuff, so it's been felt very American in spite of the year being so shitty. But good shit. Had a good question off this though. Fucking brain
Gold.
fart again.
Keeping it in the bank.
No. It's COVID stuff. So, but that's where it all came from. What has COVID done good for the world in 2020, if anything? Maybe, for example, kind of revealing the nature of politicians, the nature of sheep, who's a sheep, who's not. Anything positive that came out of it?
I think some people are waking up. Like even my mom, for example, went from in April, a vaccine would be so good, to now I'm going to find a new job if they mandate it. She works for public schools, so they probably will mandate it. So maybe people are waking up. I think that's about the only positive thing that I can see. I would say if your relationships, both, with girls and with your family have survived 2020, they're probably stronger on the other side. They've also probably destroyed a lot of them. A lot of relationships have hurt from that. So I think probably the biggest positive, and, you might have to ask me in a few months or a year if it's still a positive, because I don't know if it's really worked so far, is that maybe people have woken up. I think I see traces of that. I see hope of that, but I won't be convinced until people do something about it, and that's where they're trying to push people is, once people snap, they snap. And then there's no going back, but people haven't snapped yet. And I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised and almost a little disappointed, but I think we're getting there. We'll see. I think like the Pelosi and McConnell stuff, if it's not a hoax, is a good sign of what may come.
Well, even a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, not even, there was some allegedly, now this could be just, fake government, bullshit, hoax, psyop, whatever. There was an alleged attempt to kidnap a governor, the Michigan, I call her Cruella DeVille. This bitch, she looks like a fucking cartoon villain.
Whittler.
Yeah, evil as fuck.
Whittler.
But I was laughing at that because I'm like, ha, fuck. Like this one's a massive piece of shit. Like she's the worst governor in the country, worse even than California and New York. This bitch is like evil, and these dudes wanted to kidnap her. Like, well, you want to act like this tyrannical bitch piece of shit? That's what happens. Like
that's what happens. Yeah. So.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like I saw in Michigan many, many months ago that when all this lockdown stuff started for a second time, they had the Capitol. They had guys with guns in the Capitol. It's like, that was like your chance. Take the Capitol. But I guess people didn't get pushed that far yet. I guess not,
Yeah. And who knows what's going to make people snap, man. But it definitely, I think a lot of people are getting pushed in that direction from the riots and BLM and the lockdowns and the
I think the latest bill, because everybody's seen what's inside that now.
Yeah,
I think that could be it. We'll see. We'll see in like 3 days, I think.
Yeah, a couple of days. It's fucking. It's exciting times, man. It's exciting times.
Yeah. It is. It's thrilling in a way. Like it's, the people around you are going to be scared, but it's also one of the most exciting times in history if you are willing to, be a part of it to a certain extent. But certainly the uncertainty, as men, we're usually logical. We have a plan, and we can, plan steps out in our life at least 3 months. 1 year, 5 years in advance. And now it's like you can't plan 5 days out because you don't know what's coming next, which that level of uncertainty is going to, it's easy to get unsettled from that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'll say too, man, to comment on this, I think Trump, I was kind of blackpilled politically, I'd say. I wouldn't call it that back. I would not have called it that back then, but I do now. Politically, I was kind of blackpilled before Trump. I was a huge Ron Paul fan. I understood how dangerous the Fed was, the globalist kind of agenda, all this crap. And I'm like, this is not only is the political system broken to the point of danger for the country, dollar collapsing, economy collapsing, who knows, man, communism and shit. But there was just nothing being done about it, like nothing. Ron Paul would try, I think, doing what Trump eventually succeeded at doing, infiltrating the Republican Party, getting the nomination, getting the presidency. But Trump is, in my opinion, the first real ray of hope the country's had politically in a long time. The first non-criminal president we've had since Reagan. And it's miraculous what he's done. Whatever happens in the next couple of days and weeks, like, fucking civil war could break out for all we fucking know. But Trump's just been so awesome, man. I love it.
Yeah, I think I had more hope when he started.
Yeah.
And I have hope, and I think they obviously know a lot more what's going on than I do. So I hope there's a bigger plan in place, because he's talking about election fraud for many, many months. So I hope he had a real plan to either stop it, which he didn't do, or to expose it and ultimately still win. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's an idiot. I'm sure he had something up his sleeve, and I guess we're going to wait a few more days to find out what that is. But
Yeah.
I'm going to wait and see before making my final judgment what he does over the next 4 years. If he stays in this, if he drains this swamp, I want to see these executive orders come down, and I want to see it get fucking better, because he really hasn't done that much for your average person, in my opinion. He's drained the swamp some, but I don't think it's really made life better for your average American people. And if anything, he's poured gas on that fire. So if he wins again, I really hope we see some like major fucking progress. And well, let's just hope that is the case.
Do you want to see people prosecuted for treason, go to jail and shit?
Yes. Oh, well, I don't want to see him go to jail.
Execution.
Yeah, I want to see way worse.
He brought back the firing squad. I mean, that was like,
Yeah, I know.
Impressive. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I didn't even
Let's
know
see
it was
that.
banned, honestly, but yeah.
No,
Yeah.
It takes a lot for me to say that someone deserves that, but some of the politicians in our country clearly do.
Oh, for sure.
And I'll fucking say that. It's
There's
obvious.
I mean, just from a logical perspective, there has to be at least, and this is like really lowballing it as an estimate, at least a few dozen elected officials in America who have committed treason, do so on a regular basis, are on the take from a foreign nation, and are actively acting against the United States. It's like, why aren't there, prosecutions for this? We have due process. You can get killed for this. You go to jail. Like, why?
I think you're being generous with a dozen.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
But no matter what,
house,
though,
probably.
there's no fucking chance. There's 0% chance there are not elected officials in the federal government, never mind the states and the governors, at least some that are on the take, that are committing literal, deliberate, on purpose treason. They're getting bribed, blackmailed, whatever. Yeah, people got to go to jail or worse. Like, that's what needs to happen. I think the country would be a lot healthier if that happens. Lock her up, Hillary, all these fucking people.
No, that's just it, man. Is we're so fearful of death, but yet we don't have a punishment like that because we're so afraid of it. And that's the whole thing with COVID too. It's like, this is like a way of life. Like, people die. That is just reality. And you know what? If you want to be really, ruthless about it, we live a hell of a lot longer than anyone else in human history. Like, people didn't used to live past 40, 50, 60. Now you get like 85 years. That's pretty damn good.
And most of kids used to die and shit when they were young, like all kinds of fucking crazy shit.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not saying, at some point, if you've died from COVID, I'm not going to take that away from someone and say, I mean, that's a loss, obviously, but if they're over 70, I'm sorry, that's in the scheme of the world's history, it's not really a tragedy. Yeah. Like, and I can say, if my grandparents got COVID and died, would I be upset? Yeah. Do I think we should shut down California to save them? No.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of it. You can't sacrifice, and I look at, this is what makes me so angry sometimes, is like, my grandma goes around and tells people, wear a mask. And I'm like, Grandma, are you fucking kidding? Like, the world, you want my kids, unborn kids, to grow up in a world where they can't smile at each other, where they're forced to wear a mask, forced to submit, forced to do this, forced to do that? I'm like, I don't fucking care about your life, because you've lived a full life in the most prosperous nation at the most prosperous time. So now shut up. And if I want to fight for that freedom, you don't get to tell me what to do. And this is how I feel about pretty much all older people in America, all the boomers. Fucking scum for the most part.
They burn their kids, man. It's like so.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm 32 years old. I don't believe I will ever in a million years get Social Security. Like, and
my parents are 55, and I don't think they will.
Yeah, exactly.
No way.
So it's a huge fucking scam. They don't let you. Now, a few politicians like Rand Paul and Ron Paul, they've been trying to get, change it so that young people could opt out of it, which is totally reasonable at minimum. But even that, they can't get done. Like, none of it. It's all just a fucking massive scheme. Yeah.
No, that's just it. I want to opt out. Like, give me that option at least. But well, okay. So that's a narrow view. So why is that a narrow view, Ohioan? What exactly is a narrow view? Like, we can say, I hate. Let's say.
Well, I'm on page. I'm on the same page with you, man. Like, old people die, even some young people can die. Like, none of it's worth. The COVID, the COOF stuff. We'll call it the COOF. Try to avoid the censors and shit. But the reaction to it, even if it's as it's a legitimate virus that does kill some people, I think it is a little bit worse than the flu. I'm on the same page with that. It could be, unless it's fucking Ebola, unless I'm going to go to the fucking grocery store, catch this virus and die the next day bleeding out of my fucking eyeballs. None of what we've done has been reasonable at all.
Justified.
None of it.
No.
Like,
no, and if it was Ebola, it would have passed faster. When you have
Yeah.
a disease that kills at that kind of rate,
it burns.
it burns through. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
But yeah,
says,
like,
I'm only thinking of myself. So you didn't really explain yourself at all here, man. But I said, I dislike what the boomers do and what they stand for. I believe that my children and all future children of the world should grow up in a free world.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we should be sacrificing the youth so that the people that have lived in the best times of the world can milk out a few more years in a fucking nursing home. That's just my opinion.
No, it's insane the way the boomers and all that, the way they've treated politics and legislation and dumping shit on their kids and grandkids is disgusting. Talk about thinking only of yourself. It's sacrificing the future of your country and for your kids just so you can have your fucking stock account do better or your home. Like, fuck this shit, dude.
But this is something else that's kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier with Eastern Europe, is that I have a couple friends here in Ukraine where, like, one of them, he's 26, maybe 27 now, and a few years ago, his parents and his grandparents came together to buy him his first apartment when he moved to the major capital. I mean, it's not a great apartment, it's on the outskirts, but they, from their small little town, came up with $30,000 between all of them to buy him his first place. And that doesn't happen in America now. These days, grandma would rather die and give 500K to somebody, to her son when he's 65 versus giving him 100K when he was 30 and letting him put it to work.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the whole point too, is that they don't understand that the purchasing power has gone down. Wouldn't you rather invest that money and see it put to use and see them succeed or fail? That's part of life too. You succeed or you fail, than to die when they're already old and they're too late to take advantage of that. Like, that's the way I look at it. Like, I will, if I go to the grave with millions and millions and billions of dollars and my kids' dreams are dead because they didn't have the financial, ability to do it, I'll have failed them. Like, this is very simple to me. I'd rather give less early than more later when it's too late.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned kids and, your kids in the future and stuff. You're not a father right now, right? Not that you know of?
No.
Yeah.
Nothing I know
of. Not that I know of, exactly. Now, but you mentioned also earlier, in the manosphere, we've seen kind of a return to patriarchy, fatherhood being a more important issue. I think it's even a new wing of the manosphere. Fathers are starting to kind of organize more cohesively. Whereas before they were kind of distributed between, MGTOW, men's rights, red pill, kind of its own thing. But what about you? Do you want to become a father someday and build a family? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, no, I do. I'm going to do it here. I see no reason to do it in the West. I see this, a year ago, it had said, like, this is a place that's going to continue to grow, and I'm in on the ground floor. And I think that's still going to be the case because it's just better off. So yeah, I have every intention of doing it. I think it needs to be done, and it does worry me, the world that they will be born into and then be inheriting. But that's kind of a part of every parent, and all you can do is your best. But I mean, frankly, the world needs some more smart people and some less retarded people, so I got to always do my part.
Yeah. All right. Fuck yeah. I'm on the same page, man. I'm really worried about the state of America in the West. It could go really good. It could go really fucking bad really quick. And a lot of different kind of ways it could go south. But I still want to build a family. I want to do that at some point.
Yeah.
I'm 40, start that. And it's scary, man. I mean, people have done, even in the dark ages, people were having kids, but it's like, they weren't living in, we get another dark age, I think, is a possibility for the West. The West could collapse more or less like Rome did. We could see worldwide communism, globalism, high-tech tyranny, chips, chip your fucking face, chip your fucking hand, vax this, vax that. It could be really fucking bad, man. But you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it, man. I think that's kind of programmed into all of us, and that's the human part of us, is passing on your legacy. And people want to take that away. They want to chip you. They'll make you a computer. They want to just make you another cog in the machine. And that's, if you look at the way the propaganda is now, everything is about to have less family, for the environment, for the world, et cetera, et cetera. And that's taking away a part of what it means to be human. So the best thing you can do in that case to resist, so to speak, is to have kids.
Yeah. Well put, man. Fuck yeah. For, man, that would have been, really out of place 10 years ago in the manosphere.
It would have. Yeah. It would have. Even 5 years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's take a
Graham wants to know if I'll have 10 kids. 10?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about 10.
Graham has to do that.
3 to 5. 10?
Yeah.
I don't know about 10.
I want to go for some of our speakers at the convention have a lot of kids. Tanner Gudsey has 5. I think Coleman 5.
Jeff has like 7.
9.
Something?
Jeff
No.
Putnam 9.
Yeah.
Michael
That's
Foster
a lot.
Michael Foster has 7 or 8. I think he's probably gonna have more too.
Yeah.
He says he's gonna use his wife's fertility basically till it runs dry, like literally just keep pumping her full of babies till the clock runs out.
That's what they're meant to do.
Yeah, exactly. women need to get wifed up, knocked up to live happy, like 99% of the time. Yeah, a few maybe we'll go do something else.
Fully agree.
But the other some need to get wifed up, knocked up, man. Now let's take a step back though. Again, what are your views on? I bitch about feminism constantly. This is maybe not the best word, but I'm constantly just railing against it. I fucking hate feminism in about 10,000 different ways. What are your views on feminism, on the state of the West for gender relations, the way women behave? We hit on this a little bit earlier, comparing American women to Eastern European. But how do you view feminism? Is that a big issue for you? How do you see that?
I think it's as big of an issue as you do. I think, kind of judging by what I see on your Twitter and your work, you think it's like kind of the root of all evil. And I think my thought is it's more just one cog in the machine of evil.
Sure.
But I agree. You're right though. It does break down. That's like the most intimate, most inner part of what it means to be human. So when you take that away, that kind of male-female dynamic, it does kind of just rot from the outside. Feminism in America it's poison. It's, and it's literally poison in a pill because they're all on birth control from age like 11, which is fucking ridiculous. But you're right. It goes outward from everywhere when men and women can't just get along and there's no predefined roles. And now we have all this confusion because you can't have a gender on a birth certificate or whatever it might be. That's where society decays, because men need women and women need men. And like it or not, no matter what anyone says, women are not going to be men and men are not going to be women. And typically what they're trying to do in the West, though, is to usurp the men and make the men weaker. Because if you really, really nail down to it and you think about it, like, who has the ability to start a war, to break out and overthrow a government? And I hate to go down this road here too, but if you look at it, like, what races of men truly have an opportunity to do that? Who has the actual ability, the cognitive and the physical, to do something like that? And you'll see, if you look at that, you can pinpoint very clearly, like, why do they want, especially white men, to have less families and less babies and to be usurped? And it's very obvious when you look at it. And I say this as a half Asian guy too. So that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, white women are doing the worst actually with fertility in America. It's all downhill. Exactly. But it's white women are actually the worst. I attack white women. I make fun of white women for that. You're last place. Why the fucking last place with this shit?
Yeah, so in every category.
You make a good point, though. A lot of people, and I get that argument, that feminism is just one cog in a larger machine of globalism and communism, socialism, all kinds of stupid, very toxic collectivist crap. But the reason I argue so heavily against feminism, I attack it so fiercely, like you're saying, is I do see feminism as basically my vision of it and how I understand it. It's the root mechanism to attack, the relationship between men and women, which in my view is the foundation of the species. We've been fucking and breeding and making families in some form or capacity since literally the dawn of the species. And what attacks the relationship between men and women more than feminism today? It may be communism. Maybe it's a child. People say feminism is like a child of communism and the stuff. But I'm like,
no, but it's not, because under communism, you look out here and people still had kids. And that was the most important thing. Yeah. And the men were still men and the women were still women. So actually, I actually kind of agree with you on that. You're right. We've been fucking in caves and making babies and doing the whole family stuff since the dawn of time, regardless of what the government was or what the state of the world was. So actually, I totally see your point on that. And I don't think communism is necessarily a deterrent to people making families. Maybe they would limit themselves, but I don't think it's a deterrent, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, communist China, you had their one-child policy as an example and shit like that. But even that changed a little while ago. But if I see feminism in America and the West, Canada and all this shit, it has a life of its own, independent of its relationship with communists. And I'm sure they've tried to weaponize it at different points. Yeah. It's a useful tool to brainwash women. But at the same time, it's like it has a life of its own at this point, regardless of where it came from. All the celebrities and the hashtags and the nasty women, all the whole state of the culture is just falling apart. It's in America now. It's basically just fat women and sluts. Like our once great nation of all these great. There was a famous philosopher I think that came to America a while ago, de Tocqueville, I think was his last name.
Mhm.
And he commented that in America, like our greatest asset was our women. This is
Mhm.
like 1920s or 10s or something, so over 100 years ago. But now it's like you got to be fucking kidding me. It's just pajama pants and McDonald's and fucking sweatpants everywhere, and they fuck 30 dudes by age 20. They've been on birth control since they were 12 years old.
Mhm.
There's massive sluts, and they think it's normal to act like a man. They want to they want to have their first kid at 39 years old.
Mhm.
It's like fuck up after fuck up after fuck up. That's how I look at communism and globalism, and it's like these things are big problems. Great Reset. Some of these people are just psychos, man. Bill Gates and shit. George Soros. But it's like the country's fucked anyway. We have gender relations are fucking collapsing right in front of our eyes. And the dating market and the manosphere, I think, are at the forefront of that, trying to understand that.
Would you argue, though, that it hasn't taken that long to program the women this way? And if we can manage to overthrow the governments, then maybe they can be unprogrammed within 40 years?
Yeah, that's my goal.
Because they're followers. They're followers. That's their natural instinct, is to follow.
Yeah. I mean, my goal literally as an entrepreneur, part of it anyway, is to abolish feminism. And I've really been trying to make that happen. But I think that's like a 30 to 40 year fucking window of time that'll take.
Oh, hell yeah. You're going to be an old man before that time comes, regardless of how well you do. It's going to take decades. Yeah, at least. I mean, basically, I'd say the women of my generation, your generation, I'm 29, they're fucked. So the kids they raised are fucked. So maybe the ones after that, maybe.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. Millennial women in America they're doomed. Like a few will be okay, a percentage, a few percent will maybe turn their life around, do something better. The other 80, 90%, they're just fucked. They have fucked themselves up so hard, so fast, so deeply. And like, you probably, this is a manosphere kind of saying that I agree with, but men are built, women are born. And women have to basically preserve their femininity over time to be a good woman. Whereas men much more have to build themselves up, build their body, build their mind, build a business, build a life.
Well, you just look at how was an 18-year-old guy taken in the world, and look at his value versus an 18-year-old woman. 18-year-old woman, maximum value. 18-year-old guy, minimum.
No one gives a fuck.
Yeah. But I think, and this is a horrible way to think of it, but the one thing that would reverse and change feminism very, very quickly would be struggle and strife. Okay. You start shooting, you start having a war, watch how quickly, oh, please, men, I'll do whatever. Please protect me. Real quick, because survival is always the one thing that's always going to override everything else, is the way to survive. So that happens. I think we would see women in the West fall back into line very, very quickly if communism hits and it becomes a kind of a dog-eat-dog world and they need a man to provide. They can't do it. Very, very quickly, they will get back in line. Yeah. But you have to say, like, well, we basically need to have the dollar fall, civil war to break out, and a lot of other horrible things to happen for that to happen quickly.
Yeah, the price of correction is massive at this point. To do it fast anyway. Yeah,
to do it fast. Correct. And that's still going to always be gnawing in the back of their mind, too. Even if it's corrected, it's always going to be there.
Well, so this is an interesting topic you bring up because I'm following along the logic, and for the most part, I agree. However, and maybe you were too, I was hopeful at the beginning of COVID, at the beginning of this alleged pandemic and all this stuff, that women would, start heading in this direction a little bit. And for like a few weeks or a few days, it kind of was. I had girls hit me up that I haven't talked to in a long time. A lot of guys reporting this kind of behavior. Fuck buddy from 2 years ago. You haven't
How many pieces of toilet paper do you have left?
Exactly. Toilet paper and food. And even it's all, but these are all just safety mechanisms. Even when the riots broke out, girls were rightfully scared of this stuff. And guys are a source of masculinity and protection and provision. And beta males that are pussies don't have these things. But now it's all. But then we also saw OnlyFans kind of make a huge surge in 2020, and now it's like women are just fucking. They're like, oh, instead of being feminine, I can just be a massive slut and sell pictures of my asshole for $7 a month on OnlyFans. So it's like, oh, we're gonna get better. Nope, fucked, fall off cliff.
Yeah.
Were you hopeful at the beginning then of COVID that these things we'd see a push for that? And what are your views on that?
I think I did see that. I think I even tweeted that a few times, like, oh, maybe this is the thing that makes women fall back in line, but it didn't get bad enough. There was just enough. Well, that's just it. No one's gotten really poor this year. I mean, well, some people have, obviously, but just by investing in some basic stocks, you could have made a fucking fortune this year. So there hasn't been enough struggle, enough strife to make normal females come back. And now I've lost kind of hope on that.
Yeah, Walmart never closed. Like you could always probably
Yeah.
every state you could go to Walmart and buy food and shit. The trucks never stopped coming, the food never stopped
Mhm.
coming, so it never got that bad.
I guess the bigger hope I have is that quite a few girls out here now look at Western girls and say, "What is wrong with them? Why would I want to be that?" Whereas I think a few years ago they were all like, "Oh, we want to be like Sex in the City," and now they look at the photos and the marches and everything, and they're like, "Oh, why would I want to be anything like that?" So it's possible the younger generations may have enough sense to say, "No, I don't want to be 40 years old with all these cats and no options." I think there may be some, and granted, though, the hard thing is going to be that the older women are still going to be preaching those things to the younger ones, regardless
Sure.
of that. It's going to be a lot of, but, young people, kids especially, they see the hypocrisy. Like if you raise a kid, if you're saying, "Hey, you should do this, you should do that," but you don't do it, they're not going to do it. It's by example. So, young kids and people have an insight into that that's very intuitive. So
Yeah.
maybe they'll start to wake up, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's dicey, man. It's so dicey. You probably know that I did the Make Women Great Again, campaign in 2020, all the hats behind me, people saying shit. And that was the most successful thing I've ever done in terms of a marketing campaign going viral. And as successful as it was as a start to pushing back against feminism, I mean, it's like David and Goliath. Like you're pushing against, me and then the manosphere more widely against a cultural zeitgeist, I guess you'd call it. That's just so massive. Feminism and these different shit. They have trillions of dollars of fucking support from every government institution, every branch of government, every fucking corporation is pro-feminist, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big battle to fight, man. Big battle. 30, 40 years. Yeah, easy. I think it would take.
It's a big battle, and it's, I don't want to say it's not fair, but like you look at your average guy in a relationship now, and it's like you have all the responsibility, but none of the authority, and that's bullshit.
Yep.
You need to have both. If you're going to bear all the responsibility, you get all the authority. It should not go the other way at all. You can't just and it's very similar though to how governments operate now. It's socialism when it's a loss, but it's capitalism when it's bonus time, baby. And that's how the world works. People are going to take advantage of that. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we'll see how the females in America do over the next 10 years or so. But
Yep.
I hate to say it, but more and more guys every day are realizing what's available out here, and they're going, and they're having no part of doing that. And I tell you, for every one guy who has been divorced in America, and I talk to these guys, I mean, they come out here, I meet them, I have a drink with them, I show them around. They tell everybody, like, you can't shut them up about this thing. Like, they go home and they tell 50 guys. So it's like COVID. It spreads everywhere after a while.
Yeah. No, I was amazed, and I would say one of the main take homes from Poland that I had is that my standards for women went up through the roof. Like I've always liked really hot women. Now, if they're crazy or not, I was honestly kind of indifferent. Like, I'll figure it out. I want to bang them. But even that now is it's fading more and more every month, every time everything goes by. Every girl I bang, I'm like, my standards go up a little bit more, and I have less tolerance for American Western bullshit. And my tolerance for that shit was already really low in the first place, other than maybe a bang or two, and get rid of them.
Don't come out here again, man. You'll be done.
Yeah,
Your second trip will do it. It'll put the knife in you. Trust me.
I've seen the light. That's just in Poland, and I'm sure it's even. So let's talk about that then. What are the differences, if you can name some of the major ones that would be interesting to guys, between the different countries for the women there? Like I've only been to really Poland and a few Ukrainian, Russian women I met, but Ukraine, Romania, Belarus.
Yeah. So there's a pretty fine line, I would say, like Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Central Eastern European countries, pretty well off in the scheme of things. And they've definitely gone a little more Western, and their women are just a little bit more average, I would say. You go to Ukraine, you go to Belarus, and you can go to my Twitter feed right now at Kyle Trouble. Go scroll down through the media pictures and look at the Belarusian ball from New Year's Eve. Like, go look at those photos and tell me, like, I mean, yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, poor guys there living under Lukashenko. Like, wow, they get their pick of all these girls. And yeah, so Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, I think with my personal taste, it's kind of a tier of its own. And then if you go kind of towards the southeast, you'll get a little more of a kind of a Mediterranean look. So Serbian, Romania, Bulgarian. I think Romanian, Serbian are pretty high up there as well. And then you kind of get.
I think you have experience in Croatia. I mean, part of your company was dealing a lot in Croatia, right? What are the women like in Croatia? My family's from there, my maternal family.
I don't know much about the women there, but what I will say is that those countries, like the Balkan region, so that's Serbia, that's Croatia, that's Romania, that's Bulgaria, they're a lot more cliquey. So like you can go out to say bars here in Eastern Europe and you can, talk to strangers and they'll be pretty friendly. But in those kind of more balkanized states, it's a lot more closed off. It's about who you know, the connections you have. Like it's hard to just walk in there for a week and like really get your way into that. Now, if you stay for a few months, you meet the right friends, and they are very friendly people. If you're there, then you can really make some progress. But it's going to take a little bit longer. And they're just, as an expat, like, I'm not a digital nomad. I'm an expat. I actually live here. There is certain limitations by too small of countries and too small of cities. So when a city is only 1 million people and there's really only one like central area that's nice, you run out of options really, really quick. And you start to see the same people all the time. So it can be helpful to be in a bigger city that's just a little bit more, I guess I'd say even westernized. You got to find that right middle ground, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to check it out, man, assuming the world doesn't blow up or travel becomes impossible in the near future. Croatia, Ukraine, Poland, I really need to go back. Yeah, I should have a lot of family. Yeah. I should have a lot of family in Croatia too, distant, extended, but should be able to find them. Matisic.
Well, dude, you should be looking into a passport.
I was back in 2010, 2011, because it was before my grandma died, which would have made it easier. She died in 2011. But I think I might be eligible to get one with Croatia. And I was calling the embassy, for Croatia and New York and all the shit. And so I would have had to go there, but I might figure that out because, I'm not opposed to having a dual passport, dual citizenship.
I applied for my Italian one at the midpoint of last year, and hopefully it'll be coming any day now. I'm knocking on the wood, hoping for it, but get that settled, man. And that applies to everybody.
Was that family-based, or how did you get
great grandfathers from Sicily, so I'm eligible for it technically. But you got to find all the documents. I'd have birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates from everyone from great grandfather, all the way down to my mom, my sister, me, 21 people ish. But yeah, it can be a difference maker. I'm hopeful I'll get it, but don't put it off. And this applies to anyone, in the chat who's listening to this. You have European descent, do your research, find out quickly, and get on it as soon as you can, because that's a great fallback option.
I actually found out when I was doing the research for this, I just didn't end up executing on it, but I found out because I was taking pictures of birth certificate, like you're saying, shit like that. My grandfather was actually born in Vienna, Austria, and then he was born, but then he was otherwise raised in Croatia. And even his son, my uncle, didn't believe that. I'm like, Dominic was born in Vienna. It's what it says as birth certificate. And he's like, no, he was born in here. I'm like, no, it says. I mean, I wasn't right there. I wasn't there, but that's what it says. Like it says Vienna very clearly on it. Yeah. I need to go. I need to go there, man. A lot of my family's been there and stuff, visiting and all that. I need to really go there. Exciting.
Such a different way of life, man. It really is. I mean, we certainly have our pluses about American culture and American way of life, but there's a lot of pluses to the European way of doing it too.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of your wider thoughts on now you've mentioned, we've discussed the manosphere. You've seen it evolve, since you've been in it, 2012. Very similar for me. I found it in 2005. I'm kind of watching it, been a part of it for a long time. What are some of the ways you think the manosphere has helped men? And what are some of the ways you think it's maybe failed men as a community and how it needs to do better?
It's helped men because it's given them the truth. And I don't think there's a good way to give someone the truth when it shatters the whole way they've been raised. And I think, you can't put the gloves on and do it in a gentle way. So I think it does a good way of shining lights on very difficult truths and giving men the ability and the resources to cope with it. I think the downsides is that it suffers from what many like online communities do. It becomes very cult-like, and there's no room for schools of thought outside of a certain way of thinking. And in reality, the world is not so black and white, and everybody kind of has to carve their own path. So there's always a framework, but you can deviate outside of that framework. And that's what I wish people would say, is that there's room outside of what we've given you, that you can do your own thing as long as you kind of stick to the principles. And I think, I think, honestly, man, I kind of think like for game and pickup in the manosphere, for all it does, it can also destroy you. And I think too many people become a little bit too wrapped up in what they are and what their belief system is to the point that they won't change it. And then they're kind of the blind leading the blind. Yeah. That's kind of my take on it. I wish it was just a little bit more, I don't want to say open-minded because that's kind of like, to a certain extent, you don't want to give people that ability to deviate back to the norm, go back to being blue pill. But, there is room for thought outside of it. And I think like right now, we should all be united and on the same page more than anything, and I think to a certain extent, the people that are just brushing this off, like you said earlier, like enjoy the decline, like whatever, the world's going to burn. Like, well, okay, but what are you going to do when the world burns? Are you going to be happy with that? Or are you going to bitch about it? So if you don't stand up now and you don't fight for it, then guess what? You've lost your right to complain later.
You're fucked. Yeah. A lot of guys would say, oh, if the West falls, you can just go somewhere else, Thailand, Eastern Europe, South America. It's like,
look at easy.
Look at the world in 2020. I mean, that shit, it's like COVID, the lockdowns and the tyranny and the globalism and the crap is fucking everywhere. It's better in certain places, Florida, where you're at, Thailand and stuff. I'm watching people there, but it's none of those places are immune. Our governor could be impeached by some globalist communist, coup, and Florida could get locked down. It could be, just as much of a shithole as anywhere else in America right now. I mean, the same with every other country on the chopping block, potentially anyway. So it's like if the West falls, there's nowhere to run, I mean, maybe certain places like Russia, China will do better, but it's
that's just it. You're going to go to a place. Well, and this is the hard part. People have a hard time getting over is like, well, you're going to go to one of those countries that has been labeled as a, communist shithole. Like personally, I'd be happy to go to Russia. I'd probably love it. Like I'm quite happy if worst comes to worst there. I speak some Russian now. I understand the culture. I'm happy to go to Russia. But is your average guy living in, San Francisco going to be happy with that? Probably not. He's not going to understand it. He's not going to understand the culture, how it works. He won't have any grasp of the language. So I mean, that's just it. It all depends. If you're willing to go down with the ship, then sure, let the world burn, enjoy the decline. But I personally can't live with myself doing it that way,
Yeah, being an American, man, like both, I was born and raised in America like you, and so many men have died to the country, so that the country exists and exists in some resemblance to its founding principles and vision, and the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. I still am an American now. I still live in America. It's still a free state, at least in America. I have a shit ton of guns. I have thousands of rounds of ammunition. And that's really unusual being an adult human being on this planet. Most places you don't have, the average person doesn't have access to weapons and firearms to defend himself from anyone. Like whether it's, common criminal or the government rounding people up for fucking, free showers in a gas chamber. It's like, I don't want to go to the gulag. I'm not going to a fucking vaccine camp. I'm going to fight or die, period.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Yeah. No, but you know what? It's going to take other people. We're not proud. Most people in America are not proud to be American. I'm not even in America. I don't really like America, to be honest. I hate everything that it is now. I like the original image of it. I would do my part to restore it. But I also have built a life out here for myself. So I don't know if I'm willing to go, fight for my country, so to speak, more than what I do just on the internet. But I can certainly respect people like you that are doing that. And I think if you're going to be ignorant and stupid about it, then you don't get to complain either way. And I don't think that's my big pet peeve is you shouldn't be shaming people who are willing to stand up for fighting for what you have. Yeah. Most of
my fans by far were very supportive of my positions with, COVID and all this crap throughout the year, the lockdowns and attacking all of it. But some people weren't. There's always a few, 5%, 10% of the audience that are still like, in some ways, kind of sheepish. And it really, even some guys I know for a long time, and they were angry at me being a business owner, doing the convention and attacking the mask mandates and all this crap. I'm like, first of all, I don't give a fuck. Second of all, fuck you. I love my country. I love freedom. I'm not going to surrender my business doing a convention if I can avoid it and fight for it like I did. And all of it. It's like as an entrepreneur and a business owner, it's my job to be a leader in some respect, especially with doing a convention where I literally have to lead and manage it. But even any business owner in America.
What kind of fucking men are like pissed off that you're running a convention and not requiring masks? Like, go read some fucking stats, man. Like all the info's out there. If you put in 20 minutes of work, you can see all of it for yourself. Like,
my issue from day one though has always been the mandates, because some people are coming at me and they're like, "Why are you so anti-mask?" I'm like, I mean, I think they're stupid, but I don't really care if you wear one. I care about the mandates. I care because a mask mandate is not a mask. A mask mandate is you as a corporation or a government trying to force me to put something on my fucking face I don't fucking want. And it's like, this is not kosher. It's not okay. Like, this is not the plague.
Dude, I'm all about freedom of choice. You want to get the vax?
Yeah.
You want to line up for the fucking death jab? By all means. Like, you probably are stupid. We could do with less of you in the world.
Yeah.
You want to wear a mask on your face? Okay. You want to hide in your house all day? Okay. But don't interfere with my life. That's all I want. I don't care what the fuck you do as long as you don't interfere with mine. I flew to Istanbul like last month, and it was ridiculous. I had like a scarf mask or a bandana, and I just had it, pulled up, and the guy comes over. He's like, "That's not a real mask. It's not a real mask."
Oh
Flight
my
attendant.
God, dude.
And I'm like, he's like, "I'm the head flight attendant. I have the authority to do this." And it's like, holy crap, this is just 1984. Just fucking tyranny. And you know what? This is my bigger problem is like these low paid stupid fucks like security guards. Like, you're a fucking Paul Blart mall cop. You're making $5 an hour. You shut the fuck up and you don't tell me what to do. You don't have a damn clue what you're doing. And it's the same thing with flight attendants. But you know what? People love power, man. And if you're a loser in life, any chance you get to flex a little bit of power, they will fucking grab onto it. And that's why it's so effective. It's because they have all these little low peon dorks who will never amount to anything in life getting to tell everyone else what to do. And they love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll shift gears a little bit here. We're going about an hour and 26. It's 2021, brand new fucking year. Earth went around the sun. Whoop-de-fucking-do, right? Another time we survived. At least we did, right? And at least the world isn't completely burning down just yet. Could be soon. What are your hopes for 2021? And how can guys in the manosphere succeed in 2021? Like, what are some of the basic foundational things they really need to get in their head to kick ass this year?
You got to find that balance between being aware, because I don't think it's smart at this point to tune out of all of it. You got to find that point of where you're aware, but where it's not affecting your day-to-day life and your mood too much. And that's a really fine line to walk. And I don't know exactly, I struggle with myself sometimes. Like, yeah, Mike, someone making $5 an hour is fucking beneath me. Sorry, I got to read this comment. Yeah, they are fucking beneath me, dude.
Yeah.
I was a fucking engineer, graduated college early, built a business, moved abroad. Yeah, fucking Paul Blart shouldn't be able to tell me what to do. If Paul Blart becomes better off in life than me, then he can. Until then, no.
It reminds me of people who attack Trump. He's like, "Oh, he's so dumb, blah, blah, blah." It's like, this guy's literally a billionaire and the president. Like, I think he's smarter than you. In fact, he's probably a lot smarter than you are, and you're calling him dumb. Like,
exactly. It's fucking,
Anyway,
and a flight attendant too.
They get so butthurt about a hierarchy of life. It's like, no, this person's more successful than you. In some way, they're better than you, obviously, or luckier, but most likely they're just more skilled or persevered or whatever the fuck the case was.
Yeah. Mike, you're wrong, though. They shouldn't tell me what to do, but they do anyway. So, yeah, if I take that, that makes me beneath them. So, honestly, man, shut the fuck up. You don't have a clue what you're talking about. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, so yeah, you want to balance that difference between what you're willing to tune into and what you're willing to, just move forward with.
So you mean like pay attention to the world burning, but don't let it consume your attention and destroy your mindset and your kind of mental health?
Correct. Like, check Twitter once a day for 20 minutes. Don't spend 20 hours a day on it, kind of thing. Because you can go down that rabbit hole for a very long time. Other than that, look at a second passport. Look at a online business that will at least allow you to get out if you need to. And I think this is kind of the very basic thing, is have that plan of that point where you're done. At what point, like I keep telling my parents this, like, what's it going to take for you to leave California? Do they need to be shooting down the street? Find what that limit is for you and stick to that plan and don't deviate from it. So have that plan. And when you're going to act on that plan, at what point triggers you to act, then act on it. And I think that will give more people a peace of mind than anything else.
So I mean, develop boundaries, like lines in the sand.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to wait till it's too late. So that's just it. If you're like, well, is it going to get worse? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to get worse? Then eventually it will get worse. And if you don't have that boundary drawn, then you're not going to act when it matters. And, I want to use this analogy, like as I've really learned to trade crypto and stocks this year, is if you don't set that stop loss and you don't set to your plan, then, all of a sudden you're $1,000 in the hole and you're like, oh, it'll bounce back. And then it's 2,000 and then it's 3 and it keeps going. It keeps going. It keeps going. If you don't have that get out plan and you don't stick to it,
you get stuck in emotional thinking and gambler's fallacies, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't messed yet with crypto and stocks really. I have some crypto, but I should have done it sooner, obviously. But I know it can be dangerous. A lot of guys, especially now, you have so many normies getting into it. It's like, man, these people, like a lot of people now, is dumping even more money into it, and they don't understand anything about it. And I think it's fantastic. Like I love it, but I know it could also tank and then come back up and then go 100,000 and then it could go 10,000. Like, we don't fucking know. We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Last question. What is the? I would say number one, but you can do two or three. You don't have to narrow it down that much. What is like in your view though, the main thing that men don't understand about women? Like, what is the number one or two things that they just fuck up constantly? You're a coach. You're an author. You've taught a lot of guys around the world. What is that?
Most men in the Western world have been told their whole life that men and women are equal. So we expect them to think the same way we do. And in reality, they think very differently. And I would argue they also think at a much less intense level and much less capable level than we do. So they are emotional creatures that act purely off of emotion. And rather than reacting to that emotion, you should learn to manage it as opposed to being reactive. Understand that there's going to be things that you don't understand. That's a really key point. But that doesn't mean you actually need to understand it. You need to simply deal with it. Because it's never going to make sense to you because you're totally wired in a different way. It's never going to make sense. And I think that's the big thing and that's as far as relationships go. As far as just dating in the Western world, you should realize that you just need to have a set of balls, and everything you've been told about being weak and being nice and all that's all crap. Don't listen to any of that. So that would be my two pieces. If casually dating, if more simple, realize just be a man, throw all the advice. Don't ever listen to a female's advice about women. If you want to be more serious, then understand that what comes out of her mouth may not ever make sense to you. And it's more about managing it as opposed to reacting to it.
Like, don't get sucked into her world, her emotions and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Because they'll change in 30 minutes anyway. So it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's been a great interview, man. I had a lot of fun.
It was. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You coming on. Last question now, sort of, just tie it off. How can people find you on Twitter, website, and what are your books named on Amazon?
King's Code on Amazon. That's kind of the one I usually sell. And then at Kyle Treble on Twitter, kyletreble.com. I did daily emails for a while. I don't really do them much anymore because I'm more focused on other things. But all the hot takes, all the good stuff is pretty much just on Twitter these days. So,
got it. Fuck yeah, man. Yeah, I love your Twitter. I retweet a lot of your shit.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep, I like yours too, man. I think
thanks.
We're on the same page, and we need more guys like us to, fight the good fight for what it's worth. Some people have to do it.
Yeah, speak the fuck up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'd love for you to be at we'll see if we do it in Europe, but the 21 convention someday. Love for you to be a speaker, man. It'd be a good time.
Yeah, man, let's do it. You want to do it in Ukraine next year? You let me know. We can make it happen out here.
I might. And I wasn't aware that it was in the EU, so that's interesting. I know that's a big deal with flights and restrictions and shit, so maybe that's where it'll end up being.
You can fly like Miami to Warsaw to Kiev, or you can fly New York to Kiev, Chicago to Kiev. There's lots of options. So if you want to do it out here, man, you let me know. I can make it happen with you.
Yeah, I'll pick up a baby mama on the way out. Fuck yeah.
Importer. Exporter. All right, man. Thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Everyone else, thanks for tuning in today live on the special Sunday episode of the Redman Group, episode 130. I'll see you next weekend, most likely on Saturday, but we'll see. Stay tuned on my Twitter account at Beach Muscles and follow the Redman Group on YouTube. You can just go search Redman Group, and on Twitter, Redman Group 21, Redman Group 21. Peace out. Happy New Year. Thanks for tuning in. Kyle, see you later.
Thank you. Cheers.